What's going on, guys, and welcome back to Hashtag AskGSM, episode 576 here today for Wednesday, December 11, 2024. I'm Graham GSM Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well and having a great week so far. If you haven't already done so, please go ahead and vote in the 2024 Year in Review Awards for WWE AEW over at WrestleRant.com, available on the homepage. You can vote for the men's Wrestler of the Year, Female Wrestler of the Year, Men's Match of the Year, Women's Match of the Year, all that other sort of stuff. Vote now. The polls close on Christmas, around Christmas night, evening, whatever. Shouldn't even have to worry about the deadline if you vote ahead of time. So go ahead now after listening to this video, of course. WrestleRant.com, link should be down below to the website in the description box. If you want to send in a question to this show, you can do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/Graham.GSM.Matthews. Drop a comment on the post I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your comment down below in the comment section on this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. And then lastly, I do want to mention this real quick, as I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, over at ProWrestlingTees.com/WrestleRant, buy your first all-new WrestleRant t-shirt for the holiday season. We got a Halloween design. We got a Christmas design. We have a WrestleRant basic design. 3 all-new designs available right now over at ProWrestlingTees.com/WrestleRant. Get yourself one for the holiday season. I would appreciate the support for the show, the brand, myself. All that stuff is greatly appreciated. So let's get right into it here. All the questions for this week. And we got a bunch of them, a lot of good ones as well. Jordan B. from YouTube, their question was, do you see WWE returning the red ropes for Raw and the blue ropes for SmackDown in the next year or two? I don't know why. I'm tired of seeing the white ropes on Raw, SmackDown, PLEs, and even in NXT. Honestly, if they still have the ropes from the WWE ECW era, I would like to see them use those ropes for NXT. Weren't those the silver ropes? Didn't they use silver ropes for ECW? At what point, I don't remember, but I haven't paid attention to the ring rope color in a very long time. I used to do it for, I used to pay attention and get excited about that sort of stuff for Raw and WWE, even AEW, but AEW switched it up a whole bunch. WWE has as well. Honestly, I did not even realize that we did not have red ropes for Raw anymore. Has it just been white for all 3 brands? That is kind of fucking boring. Do I think they'll bring them back? I mean, there's nothing stopping them. I think it's just more of an aesthetic thing where if it looks better with the white ropes in their eyes, they're just going to keep the white ropes and keep it universal for all 3 or 4 shows. I say 4 shows, including the PLEs. If it's easier for them to set up, like maybe the red ropes and the blue, I don't think so. I don't really think the color of the rope should really matter. Like traveling wise and having to bring different colored ropes with them. You know, I would do that. I think the silver ropes, since NXT is now black and silver now, I would do the silver ropes for NXT, the red ropes for Raw, the blue ropes for SmackDown, and then for PLEs you could do white ropes. I think that'd be cool. Do I think they'll do that? Probably not. I honestly don't remember the last time they had colored ropes for the shows. It could have been as recently as like a fucking year or 2 ago. I don't remember. What I only really remember is when they didn't have pyro for a while. That definitely stood out to me. Because I feel like the pyro kind of adds to the presentation, and they were on a budget, tight budget at that point, in their own opinion, and they have their own reasons for why they did or did not do things. I think it was a money-saving thing, and then ultimately they brought it back a couple of years later, but it would be cool if they brought back the colored ropes. I don't think they will. Is it possible? Sure, I would like to see it, because I also grew up in the era of different colored ropes for each brand, so I would love to see that brought back. KB from YouTube, their question was, matches that both under-delivered and over-delivered for you this year. Good question. I would say for over-delivered, the biggest match that comes to mind, and it's probably just a recency bias, is that Big Boom AJ versus QT Marshall match. Like, I joke about how it was like a fucking 5-star classic. It was a lot of fun, though. Like, when that was first announced and the whole Costco guys thing, it sounded so fucking ridiculous. But it ended up being a lot of fun and one of my favorite parts of that entire show. That could have easily been a fucking disaster. And it ended up being a pretty fun, well-worked match. Now, can they recapture that same magic if Big Boom and when Big Boom AJ... It just even calling him that sounds fucking dumb. That was his name, though. When AJ gets back in the ring for them, which they announced that he will, and he was on the fucking press conference for All In a couple days ago, going to Texas, and I was going to say a couple of months, but that's in like July of next year. I don't know if they can recapture that magic, but that match initially, his debut match, was a lot of fun. The incorporation of his son, Big Justice, and the Rizzler, again, Even saying all of this out loud is ridiculous, but it was a lot of fun. So that, for me, at least over-delivered. Any match, like a lot of the matches on TV this year, Bianca did not have like the most dominant singles year. Obviously, of her career this year, she was in a tag team for the entire year. And her tag team matches were fine. But I feel like some of the TV matches she had this year, with Io Sky on Raw a few months ago, it was like right around the time that Joe Tessitore had joined Raw commentary. Because I remember it was one of his first weeks, and he showed a lot of enthusiasm, and that was what really stood out to me, in addition to the match itself. And we know Bianca and Io can work well together, but that really stood out as like one of the more fun Raw matches of the entire year. And then her recent match, even a week ago with Piper Niven on SmackDown, again, two women that we know can work well together from their previous encounters with each other. But they went out there, got some time, got the crowd into it. That was a lot of fun, and both matches involved Bianca Belair. And honestly, most matches involving, I don't want to say Liv Morgan, because Liv Morgan has had some pretty good matches in the past. But, her SummerSlam match with Rhea was pretty good. The rest of the matches she's had during this run as the Women's World Champion have not been great. It's been more storyline stuff. But honestly, I've been more impressed by Nia Jax in the ring. Nia Jax, like Rhea Ripley and Nia Jax, did over-deliver for me. It wasn't like a great match by any means, but it was pretty good, and it was cool to see Nia Jax in a pay-per-view main event and not, like, have it be a fucking stinker. That would not have been the case 2-3 years ago. Like, I would not have been as in favor of it. I would not have probably liked the match because it wouldn't have been the same quality of match. She's clearly one in a lot better shape than she was a couple of years ago, but that's not like solely the reason as to why her matches are better. She looks good, but also it looks like she has improved. I don't know how much training she was doing outside of her, when she was gone from WWE for that year or two period, but during her time away, whatever she did to improve, or just being back and getting back in the swing of things, or if she's just putting more effort into it now, I don't know. I don't know what the difference is, but she hasn't injured nearly as many, if anyone, since being back, and she's had some pretty good matches this year alone with the likes of Rhea Ripley in the main event of Elimination Chamber, the Day 1 match on Raw, and the Last Woman Standing match, both with Becky Lynch earlier this year. Those were very good matches. The Bayley matches weren't great, they were fine, but she had a very good match in the main event of SmackDown about a month ago with Naomi for the WWE Women's Championship, so I would say Nia Jax as well. A lot of her matches over-delivered for me. And then for under-delivered, the biggest one that comes to mind that I'm sure a lot of people would agree with, Jimmy Uso versus Jey Uso at WrestleMania. Not a match that I was expecting to be a banger anyway, but that was just a fucking dud. For as long as they built that thing up for, dating back to SummerSlam of last year, on and off, mind you, that match was a complete disappointment. I mean, again, wasn't a match that a lot of people thought would be like this 5-star mat classic anyway, but it really should have been better than what it was. That was just not good. That was not great. I don't know many other matches that really stood out to me as being like disappointing. I'm trying to think. Even AEW's matches overall were like either as good, if not better than I thought they would be. Not really over-delivered, but like AEW had a great in-ring year. Not a great product year as far as like excitement around the product and storyline-wise, but most of their matches were great. Another match that under-delivered for me? Bryan Danielson and Nigel McGuinness. A very good match that I enjoyed, but the build sucked. It was basically non-existent, and it should have felt more special than it was. It kind of felt like they were just getting started before it abruptly ended, and then they forgot about it as soon as it was over. That was like one of those blink and you miss it things. Like, did that even happen? It was almost like it didn't even happen. So, that match and Jimmy versus Jey Uso from WrestleMania. Under-delivered for me personally. Micah does it from YouTube. The first question was, with WWE announcing a trade portal, who are 5 wrestlers that you want to see switch brands between NXT, SmackDown, and Raw? Good question. I kind of threw some names out there in my SmackDown audio review last week when they first announced this trade portal on SmackDown. But a couple names that come to mind. Chad Gable, I know he was on SmackDown last week, and he was the one to announce it. Make first mention of it on SmackDown last week. But he is someone, an American-made in general, I feel like could benefit from switching brands. Not that they've done all they can do on Raw. It's not like the Creed brothers have won the World Tag Team titles and that Chad Gable's won the Intercontinental Championship. But they haven't had a whole lot of luck on Raw. They lost to the Wyatt Six. Chad Gable lost to Sami Zayn God knows how many times. He's not winning that IC title. That's pretty clear at this point. I would ship him over to SmackDown. It would be great to see him as the United States champion at some point. Will that happen? I don't know. But I would move all of American-made following their feud with Rey Mysterio and Dragon Lee, though. And I say following the feud, but what I'm really saying is we got to get Chad Gable and Rey Mysterio at least once, because they were building towards that for a while. We didn't see any real progression on that front this week or last week, I think. I would move them all as a whole, the entire American-made faction, over to SmackDown personally. Them, LA Knight might benefit from a move to Raw. I just don't want him getting overshadowed over on Raw by the other star power they have. But then the question is, who are they moving as far as the top talent are concerned? I could absolutely say the Bloodline, the OG Bloodline / Roman Reigns, moving to Raw collectively. I would not swap the top titles. If they do that, that's fine. I kind of like the coherency. I love the coherency and the consistency and the branding of the Women's World Championship, the World Championship, and then the World Tag Team titles all being on the same show. You could swap the mid-card belts, but I'm not really sure what that would accomplish. Nakamura currently has no fucking challengers on SmackDown. He's already beaten Andrade, he beat Knight, he obviously can resume those rivalries, but beyond that, who does he really face? So you can swap him over to Raw. Who's the Intercontinental Champion? Braun Breaker? That would suck for Sheamus. I know Sheamus just challenged for the championship a couple of times. I could totally see Braun Breaker going back to SmackDown. So keep an eye out for that. I could see Braun Breaker, Nakamura switching shows with their respective championships. I'm giving you more than 5 here, but I'm just kind of thinking out loud. AJ Styles, I know he's hurt right now, but he was someone, even before this trade portal was announced, I would have moved over to Monday Night Raw. I feel like he's done all he can do on SmackDown. He's already challenged for the championship, the WWE Championship, that is, unsuccessfully a couple of times. I would move him over to Raw, keep him as a babyface. Drew McIntyre, when he's done with Jey Uso and Sami Zayn, he's already been World Heavyweight Champion. He's feuded with Punk. He's feuded with Rollins. If they're staying where they are, and they should, he should go to SmackDown. So I would put him on SmackDown. Maybe they're doing Rollins and Punk reportedly on that first Raw of the year because they want to move Rollins over to SmackDown and get it over with. I wouldn't do that personally. That would just be shortchanging the feud. I suppose you can, and in that case, Becky Lynch would also go to SmackDown. Raw needs the depth more. For the women, I think Bayley should go to Raw. I know we would be missing out on a Bayley versus Naomi feud, but they've done that match a few times already this year. Naomi should be the one that's revealed to have attacked Jade Cargill and turn heel. But she has enough feuds going on with, if that were to happen, with Bianca and Jade. We don't need Naomi versus Bayley as well. I mean, we could, but that shouldn't be what keeps Bayley on SmackDown. So I would swap Bayley over to Raw. That's not a bad idea, I feel like. That's a lot of people, but if you include NXT, Ethan Page, I don't know what they're doing with him next. I know he lost his opportunity to become number one contender to the NXT Championship at Deadline. You can move him over to the main roster. He's been main roster ready since day one, but he's had a really fun run in NXT for the last 6 months. I would call up Ethan Page, unless they have something great in mind. Turning him babyface, no thanks at this point, but if they want to maybe reunite him with Josh Alexander, if that's where they're going with it, not a bad idea. I don't know if that's where they're going with it, but again, just an idea. So there's that. Wesley, I feel like he's main roster bound. He lost to Javon Evans again last night. I thought he might win to kind of keep the feud going, and they could keep feuding, but he's already lost to Javon twice. Wesley hasn't won a super important match in a while, since that Zachary Wentz street fight on the CW debut, or one of those first 2 weeks, over 2 months ago. I thought he might face Trick Williams before he got called up, but now I'm not so sure. It's not happening at New Year's Evil. The next earliest PLE would be Vengeance Day in 2 months. I mean, I could see Wesley staying, but he's been in NXT for fucking 4 or 5 years at this point. It's time to move him on up. So there's him. Roxanne Perez, I could absolutely see losing the NXT Women's Championship at New Year's Evil and then getting the call-up. Same with Trick Williams. I think we could absolutely see. I think Julia is a definite. Obafemi, I'm not as confident about, but I do think Obafemi might win that NXT Championship. So I'm going to say Trick Williams, Roxanne Perez, Ethan Page, and Wesley all get the call-up. And maybe Gallus as well. Gallus, I mean, they could win the NXT Tag Team titles next week on NXT, and if they don't, they are absolutely headed to the main roster, because what more could those guys possibly do down in developmental, which is where they've been for the last fucking 7 or 8 years. It's time to move on. Your second question, should WWE rename Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods The New Way? Oh, Micah, you're killing me. You're killing me with these names. These names are awful. I love you, Micah, but listen, I'm all for giving them a new name. The New Day, if the Big E, like it's the fucking fair here in the Northeast, If Big E's not going to be with them, then they're not truly the New Day. The New Day itself as a name fucking was always dumb, but we've kind of accepted it because it's been around for a decade. But, like, it wouldn't even make sense. Yeah, it's a new day for the New Day, but I would still, like, I know the name has a lot of equity. They can always go back to it when they go back to being baby faces. I thought they might come out on Raw this week and rename themselves. They didn't. They just came out and attempted to explain their actions and were booed out of the building, which was great. But I hope at some point they do get a new name. Not their respective names, like the group name. And a new theme obviously is coming too. They're not coming out to that same fucking theme song. If they're supposed to be serious, they got to change the theme. Easily. But like the New Way, the Bad Day, that's just stupid. They can get more creative than that. Now, if you ask me what their new name should be, I'm not good with that stuff. I'm not creative as far as names go and group names. The group itself isn't doing a whole lot for me right now, but the Death Riders over in AEW, I think that's a great name for a faction. Now, obviously, you can't use the Death Riders, and I don't think they would anyway, but they got to come up with something different than the New Way or the Bad Day. That is just, to me, stupid. I appreciate you, Micah. I love you. I appreciate the effort, but those don't work for me, brother. Chris W. from YouTube, their first question was, he says, "Hi, Grim. Happy to be back from a week in the Music City. I had a fantastic time in Nashville with some good cider, BBQ, barbecue, and incredible live music. I recommend it to anyone, even if the weather, even during this time of the year, was just as cold. Anyway, who do you see winning the Continental Classic this year? I know Kyle Fletcher is killing it right now, but we're only 2 weeks in, and anything can happen. Who do you think will snag the big one? And have you been enjoying this heel push of Fletcher so far?" First of all, Chris, welcome back to the show. Glad you enjoyed your time away. Nashville is fun. I went to Nashville for SummerSlam. I may have said this when you mentioned it a couple of weeks ago, but I was there for SummerSlam 2 years ago. One and only time, and it was a fun time. It was a fun couple of days. That downtown area where everything is was very small, so it's like that one stretch, so it's easy to explore and walk down. Getting an Uber out of there post-SummerSlam was fucking tough, but the actual weekend itself was a good time. So I would recommend it. I don't know if I'll be back. I don't know if I would want to go back, but for a one weekend thing, it was a fun time, and I'm glad you enjoyed yourself, Chris. So as far as your question is concerned, yes, I have been digging the Kyle Fletcher push so far. I think he's done a great job. I think the turn itself from Will Ospreay was well done back at Wrestle Dream. They have followed up on it well. He beat Will Ospreay in clean fashion to Full Gear, which was great, and they had a great match. He has since won, two, I think maybe 3 matches in the Continental Classic. I know he beat Shelton Benjamin. He may have beaten fucking like a Commander or someone like that soon after. I don't think it was Commander, but he beat, I think he won a second match. And then I know he beat Okada on Collision this past week. I don't think it was Rampage. I think he beat, Okada beat Briscoe on Rampage, and then Okada lost to Fletcher clean on Collision. And Okada has not suffered a whole lot of losses so far in AEW, and when he has, it's been, even when he has, it's been clean. But he hasn't lost a whole lot, and he lost to Fletcher clean. That's a massive endorsement of Fletcher to have beaten Ospreay and Okada, 2 top talents in AEW, in the ring specifically, but also in terms of how they're portrayed. Clean is a pretty big deal. So yeah, I think Fletcher's made the most of his push. AEW needs fresher faces, and they have a lot of faces on their roster. I hear that all the time. Oh, there's too many people on their roster. Yeah, you're right. But they're not pushing some of these people past a certain point, and they don't get beyond a certain level, whether the follow-up on certain moments is poor or whatever. They're just not connecting, or the push I don't really give a shit about, or the damage has been done. Like a Lance Archer, for example. They can put him in the Don Callis family all they want. I like the guy. I couldn't give a fuck about him, though, at this point. I mean, he's been pushed on occasion, and they've never really gone all the way, and he's been there for so long. At this point, who can even really care? But Fletcher, he's new enough, he's talented enough, and he's making the most of this little push. Little push, hopefully a major push, but I think it's great. As far as who will win the Continental Classic, I think it's going to be Ospreay. I think we end up with a final of Ospreay and Fletcher, and maybe, because we're getting 2 semifinal matches on the show itself. I would hope, Fletcher won that match on TV on Collision against Okada. I would be very surprised, honestly, if they had Fletcher beat Okada again. I think the finals of that league, I forget whether it's the Blue League or Gold League, I think it's the Blue League. I would be surprised if Fletcher beat Okada again. I think Okada will probably go to the semifinals at least, and I think Okada could beat Fletcher there, and then we end up with Ospreay and Okada on pay-per-view, and Ospreay goes over. I do think Ospreay wins the entire thing. Does Ospreay need to win the Continental Championship? No, he does not. But I do think that's where we're going. So my original idea was Fletcher and Ospreay again, and then Ospreay would win, which honestly I don't really want to see. I would rather see Fletcher go all the way or beat Ospreay for a second time and they really push him hard, which they are now. I am a little worried, like, after this whole thing is over, and where do they go with him from there? Like, Jay White did great in the Continental Classic last year. Where the fuck did he go post-tournament? Nowhere. He chased the fucking trios titles with the Acclaimed. So I think the Acclaimed were the champions, but like, he wanted those belts and they formed a group. It was just awful. So I would rather see them follow up on him accordingly if he doesn't win this whole thing. And Fletcher himself, does he also need the Continental Championship? Again, the answer is no. But Takeshita is currently the international champion. So if they want to add more gold to the Don Callis family, Brian Cage is the Ring of Honor TV champion for whatever the fuck that's worth, then I would give Fletcher the Continental Championship. I just don't think that's going to happen. I'm gonna say Will Ospreay comes out on top, beating Okada in the finals at World's End to become the new Continental Champion. Chris W's second question. I know you're a big fan of Bayley, but to be perfectly honest, I have been having a difficult time for a while now caring for pretty much anything she has been doing ever since WrestleMania. I thought the match was good live, even if the crowd was quiet through most of it, the match with Io Sky he's talking about, and her title reign consisted of feuds that didn't really help elevate or make people care that much about. To me, they didn't maintain the momentum from her Mania win. Ever since then, she's been in a storyline where she's been seen as a likely suspect for who attacked Jade and is in line to win the new U.S. Championship for the women, though I'm going with Stratton for the win. As Bayley's popularity cooled off, and she's not as over as a heel as the company panned her out to be, as a babyface, I think you mean, because she's not... Like, are you saying she wasn't as over as a heel as the company thought she would be, or as a babyface? I assume you mean as a babyface, because that's what she is right now. And then you also say, do you think if they turned her heel, this face run would be all for nothing? I mean, it wouldn't be all for nothing. Going into Mania, the dynamic was weird, because had you asked me a year earlier who should go babyface between who should go babyface between Bayley, that was confusing, between Bayley and Io Sky, I would have said Io Sky. Io Sky was kind of naturally, organically getting over. And this is worth mentioning too. She was the one that was organically getting over as the one that was being bullied by Bayley, and Bayley didn't want her to cash in, and if she did, she wanted the briefcase for herself. But Bayley was the one that went babyface in all of it, not Io. And that was because Bayley had this wide spread of support in late 2023, early 2024, winning the Rumble, and she deserved that moment. But I think it really should have been, like, Io should have been, it reminded me, not exactly, because this was worse, but like of Legacy. Legacy was around for about the same period of time that Damage Control was in that form, with Dakota Kai, Io, and Bayley. And the whole point of Legacy was to elevate the other guys involved, Cody Rhodes and Ted DiBiase. And to have one of them break out, I think ideally, the original idea was Ted DiBiase, to break out and become this breakout babyface, and then beat Orton or go over on Orton, whatever. By the end there, it was not DiBiase or Rhodes getting over with the audience as a babyface or endearing themselves to the audience. It was Randy Orton. And Randy Orton was the one who went babyface and went over on them at WrestleMania. Now, obviously, things worked out for Cody Rhodes. Not in the immediate future, though. Like, he went on to win the IC title like a year and a half later. DiBiase got fired, and DiBiase was probably never going to be a breakout babyface anyway, let's be honest. And my namesake of my YouTube channel, my original YouTube name, Ted DiBiase, Priceless 8 or 9, whatever it is, was named after DiBiase. I was a big DiBiase fan, but, retrospect, hindsight being 2020, in retrospect, was he ever going to be a big star for them? Regardless of how that Legacy feud, panned out, probably not. My point is that the whole idea should have been to elevate the younger guys, and they had Orton go over instead. With Bayley and Io, again, Io kind of in the Cody Rhodes spot where she didn't go over in that initial Damage Control feud, but she did end up getting over, and she's right where she should be now a little bit later than I originally thought, as a babyface. Now, she's still in Damage Control, but the entire group are just babyfaces now. So yeah, I mean, with as far as Bayley goes, it wasn't for nothing, because it made for a great moment. Because she's won at WrestleMania before. She retained her Raw Women's Championship at Mania in 2017. She walked into Mania in 2019 as one half of the inaugural WWE Women's Tag Team Champion. She didn't win, and the match was whatever, but, she had that moment at least. She won in COVID. She, retained her title at the pandemic WrestleMania, but she never really had a true WrestleMania moment until this year when she walked into Mania as the challenger, had new music, which I'm not in love with, but it's okay. A new look, and won the title in a great match. Easily her best WrestleMania match ever was with Io Sky. I thought they had a great match. Not good, I thought it was great personally. But yeah, the follow-up wasn't great. They didn't really have a whole lot of strong challengers lined up for her. The triple threat at Backlash was really good with her, Naomi, and Tiffany. And the Piper Niven feud was fine. It was a fine feud for the country because Piper was from there. And, that wasn't really a great match. It was good. But then she didn't really defend it at Money in the Bank, and she was kind of in a holding pattern until SummerSlam, where she finally faced Nia Jax and then lost. Bayley's always been better in chase mode than she has been as a champion. She had a great title run in NXT, so that's not necessarily true. Bayley can work well as a babyface champion. It's just that the depth of the division at that point on SmackDown wasn't overly great, and the creative wasn't great, and Bayley's character arc, for her going babyface and accepting the audience was fine, but she never really, did she ever really apologize for all the shit that she did? I think she did more than Roman Reigns did, let's be honest. But it is funny, people like Roman and Bayley and fucking Rhea Ripley, they're the ones that were doing, despicable shit and went babyface and never really apologized. Bayley may have, I know Rhea did not, and I know Roman did not as characters, so that's why are we cheering for them, you know what I mean? But we do, because we like these people. So yeah, the Bayley dilemma is interesting because I don't really know what you do with her now. She failed to regain the championship as she should have, and I don't really know what more they do with her. So I would shift her over to Raw. I would not turn her heel again. She was a heel for 5 years. Would it have been for nothing to turn her babyface? No, because it served its purpose in getting that Mania moment, getting the feud, having a run, which she had not held. She had not had a championship, a main singles title in about 4 years, since late 2020, so she probably enjoyed that. And the reign wasn't overly great, but I thought it was perfectly fine for what it was. And now you just kind of have to find other ways to keep her interesting. So working with the other women on SmackDown and Raw, people like Candice, which is what they're doing now. Is it the most compelling feud? No, but it's something different. And now she probably wants to work with Candice because they go way back. Having her work with people like Tiffany, which I don't think she's winning the U.S. title, by the way. I feel like that'd be a waste. She already is Miss Money in the Bank. To have her win the U.S. title would be weird, but I guess that could happen. There's a very strong chance that could happen on Saturday. But anyway, to have her work with people like Tiffany and Candice and women over on Raw, Chelsea Green, who she's facing on Friday, I think is the benefit of Bayley at this point. That is where her value lies. She's extremely established and decorated and over. She will always be over. Is she as hot as she was earlier this year? No, but that's just because it was Mania season. She won the Rumble, and it was a different time. But they could be doing better with Bayley, I agree. Like you said, I'm a big fan of Bayley, but even I can admit that she's not the most interesting character on SmackDown right now. Using her as a potential suspect for who attacked Jade makes sense, given that she has had issues with Bianca in the past, a lot of them actually. So I think her role in that storyline makes sense, but once they rule her out, I think moving her over to Raw would make the most sense. If not, feud with Naomi. Now, Naomi's not a new name to really elevate, but that would be a fresh feud. They've had matches before, plenty of them, but never with Naomi as the heel and Bayley as the babyface. That brief period where Naomi was a heel from 2015 to 2016, Bayley was still in NXT, so we never really got a match with that dynamic. And Bayley may have been a heel and Naomi a babyface. They did do that match, actually. I think they did do that match at Elimination Chamber, not at the Rumble in 2020. They definitely did do that match, I think on SmackDown for the title. And now you can reverse the roles and have Bayley be the babyface, Naomi the heel, if they wanted to go that direction. So those are my thoughts on that. Your next question, what are your thoughts on the comments made by Ryan Nemeth on CM Punk? And why are so many ex-AEW stars threatening to bury Tony Khan in AEW all of a sudden? Do you think there's an agenda behind it? I don't think there's an agenda behind it. I'm not going to put on my fucking tinfoil hat and say there's a conspiracy here. AEW WWE too. This is not a secret. With WWE, we're just so used to it, so we kind of not turn a blind eye to it, but it's it's just normal at this point, and it's still an issue. WWE has a lot of pending litigation and lawsuits against it, even with the new regime. So it's not like they're flawless in all of this. But with AEW specifically, they have a lot of shit going on right now. Whether the product is just being cold, and a lot of the negativity towards AEW just in general is for a lot of different reasons. Like Ryan Nemeth is not out there, and I don't know, maybe he is, I don't know. He's not out there saying the regular TV product sucks the same way that I might be, depending on the week. I think AEW does some good stuff right now. The weekly product is just not overly exciting at all. The pay-per-views are great. Dynamite, Collision, Rampage. The Continental Classic has, helped those shows a little bit in terms of like the matches being better and stuff like that. The overall storytelling is very weak right now. Not completely non-existent, but it's very weak. But there's different issues with the company. So that's one end of it. That's in front of the camera. Behind the camera, they also have a lot of issues with like talent just not being happy, not being used, which is understandable. The Phoenix situation I'll talk about in a little bit. Someone asked me about that. The Ryan Nemeth thing is different from all of that. He's not under contract to them anymore. He hasn't been in about a year. His issue with AEW was that, the CM Punk thing, and that was meant to be, it's like a lawsuit. Now, whoever leaked it to Fightful, I don't know if like Fightful had like dug that up. I think someone had leaked it to them. I don't know who that would have been. So they obviously did want that to get brought to light, because Nemeth's whole thing, according to what he had said in his lawsuit or litigation or whatever the fuck it was that he wants AEW to be a better place behind the scenes. Now, he doesn't work there anymore, so like, when I hear that sort of stuff, it's like, dude, like, just fucking move on. But to be fair, he's claiming, and he says he has receipts, of AEW wanting Nemeth in promos on TV to bury CM Punk. Now, Nemeth has his own issues with Punk, or had his own issues with Punk, the whole tweet thing, and Punk kind of fucking called him out for it. He had issues with Punk, but now his, issues have kind of shifted towards AEW itself, for kind of fueling the fire, because they had their own issues with Punk, so they're kind of using Nemeth as a scapegoat, or they were. And then when they told him to stop, and whatever, they had, I guess, according to the lawsuit, there was an NDA potentially in place. And then when Nemeth wanted to kind of work on the, terms of the agreement, they pulled it, like, they were like, oh, never mind. So, like, why would they even have him sign an NDA in the first place if it wasn't that big of a deal? There's a lot of NDAs in AEW, which is very weird to me. There's been a lot of NDAs there for a very long time. I mean, this isn't just a blanket statement, but typically if you don't have something to hide, then what's the point of an NDA? And it could be a good something to hide. Like, I know Marvel has NDAs all the time. They want to hide like certain surprises and spoilers getting out. That's not what this is. Like, there have been people under NDAs to AEW since the very fucking beginning, and that we still don't have all the details on as far as like certain departures and just a lot of weird stuff that has gone on. Tony Khan wants everything to be positive, which I understand, but you also have to address certain situations when it makes sense. I don't know if he needs to address this. Ryan Nemeth is a non-factor. He's not going to change the company. Who really gives a shit? I don't think it's that big of a deal. But it does, CM Punk keeps getting dragged into it, whatever you want to, whatever word it is applicable to use there. I mean, he was part of the issue as well, as long as he was there and kind of fueling the fire and shit that he did, the brawls and the part that he played in it, but he has not worked there in well over a year. So the fact that this is still going on and it involves him, and it's not like Nemeth is like blaming him. I mean, their shit seems to have been resolved. He's blaming AEW for to have fueled the fire for as long as Nemeth was there and Punk was there, and when Punk left, Nemeth wasn't really a priority anymore to keep him shut, because it's like, why protect Punk if he doesn't work here, blah, 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 blah. So a lot of fucking drama. I don't really think it's, like, I assume you're also talking about the Phoenix thing as far as all these ex-AEW stars coming out and burying Khan. I mean, the Phoenix thing is its own situation, which I'll talk about, but he also has reason to be upset for his own, for a lot of shit that we probably aren't completely privy to, that I'll get to momentarily. But no, I don't think it's a widespread agenda. Now, with the fans, people just in general jump onto what's hot. So if it's cool to hate on AEW, if it's cool to hate on WWE, the Fed, which is so fucking cringy, by the way, then they'll do that. They'll look for any opportunity to do that. But you got to pull apart what makes sense and what pull away from it, what's just stupid. What makes sense and what's dumb. And a lot of this stuff, like the Nemeth stuff and the Phoenix thing, are legitimate issues. If you're just shitting on AEW for like a simple botch in a match, then who cares? You know what I mean? Like, the product isn't that great right now. There's certain things you can pull apart from that. But these other issues are legitimate, and it's not like they're all banding together to say, hey, fuck AEW. It's just because they have so many issues that they need to work through and should probably have been addressed earlier. Christopher L. from Facebook, your first question was, last week had 4 backstage beatdowns from 3 different shows across WWE television. At this point, I find it lazy and embarrassing. Do you think they need to stop doing this stupid trope? I mean, wrestling will do this trope regardless, but Yes. The fact they did 4 in 1 week was lazy. Embarrassing, I don't know, because a lot, like the Eddie Thorpe one, which they revealed was him last night on NXT, honestly, I thought that was actually really well done. He had done that to get out of the Iron Survivor Challenge, to make Trick and Ava agree to give him a title shot one-on-one. That's pretty fucking smart. And he said all of that after already signing the contract. So I thought that was well done. The Jade thing was like a couple of weeks ago. That's an ongoing mystery. They had Jay get attacked, and I think someone else got attacked. Oh, the Profits as well. So yes, they're using the same card. That is lazy. Just find different ways to tell that story. They're just telling the same story with 4 different people on, across 3 different shows. So I do agree with that. They just need to do a better job of spacing it out or not doing it as often. So the trope itself will always be a thing. We see it in AEW a lot. We see it in all these promotions a lot. But it's to create mystery. Oh, who attacked them? It's a good little like whodunit type thing, but you can't run the risk of doing it too often, which WWE has done. And not many people are bringing it up, I think, because it didn't end up being a problem. Like the Jade thing is intriguing. The Eddie Thorpe thing was like, what the fuck even is this? But the ultimate reveal was well done. The Profits, we kind of knew immediately that it was DIY, and the Jey Uso thing we kind of knew as soon as Drew came out later on in the show on Raw last week that it was him. So at least it's not like 4 different mysteries going on for 4 weeks or months at a time. They already seemingly cleared 3 of them. And now we just have the Jade one lingering for a while, which of all of them, that's the most intriguing, and they should keep that one going for a while. Your second question. From what I heard, NXT Deadline was a very up and down show. Good wrestling, but a flat crowd that added no excitement or atmosphere to the show. Is NXT losing its cool after its debut on the CW? And if not, was the venue for the show proof that NXT is not as hot as it once was many months ago? What are we even talking about, though? Like, even when NXT arrived on the CW, I had questions from you, Chris, including other people, saying, like, oh, like, the debut show wasn't that great, which it wasn't. That first show was not, like, overly, like, a statement show. It was not NXT's best show of the year. Their second show was a lot better, and that was in a smaller venue. This also looked like a smaller venue on Saturday night. So, I mean, I don't know what was going on. I don't know if it was the product itself. The crowd just sucked. They were pretty loud when they were not in that same venue, but I don't think it was the same venue. But they were in that same city for SmackDown the night before. They were loud as fuck on that show at certain points. And NXT, for whatever reason, they bought tickets to the show, and the Iron Survivor Challenge matches are exciting. They weren't overly into those for whatever reason. So I don't know. The NXT product itself, it's not like it was white hot 2 months ago. Let's not pretend like they've fallen off. That has been pretty consistent all year, which is to say that the NXT product is what it is at this point. It's not awful, but it's not like... If you were comparing it to a year ago, I would say, yeah. I mean, the NXT product from like the spring of 2023 to the fall of 2023, when they were bringing in a lot of main roster talent, and that was before... Like, the timing is not coincidental. As soon as they announced that CW deal was signed late last year, all of a sudden it seemed like they stopped putting a whole lot of effort into the show. And they were still doing some really good storylines and feuds and stuff. And even the show like now, but I don't think the show is drastically different in December than it was in October. Like last night's show I thought was good. I thought Deadline was a fine show. They've had better PLEs this year, much better PLEs. That was not one of them on Saturday. It was a good show, but they've had better, like we both said. But I think it's unfair to say, oh man, it was so hot in like October. It really wasn't. The NXT product was not white hot in October. They just had 2 road shows that were fun. The ECW Arena show I thought was a lot of fun. I think next week's show that I'm hoping to be at in Lowell, Mass. is also going to be a lot of fun because it's a different environment. But let's not pretend that, I mean, these shows are just going to be, that they've been consistently every single week as good as like Raw or SmackDown have been for the last number of months. They haven't been. The overall NXT product is a lot cooler now since the spring. Just because they lost a lot of talent to the main roster. They didn't replenish the pot all that well. With the women they have, they brought in Ethan Page and I think maybe 1 or 2 other people. But they still need more like depth on that roster, especially on the men's side of things. It's kind of weak in the main event scene, in the mid-card scene. The women are fine. The women are carrying these shows right now. But NXT itself, the product, it's serviceable. It's not... I would never want to go back to the NXT 2.0 days from late 2021, early 2022. There was some good stuff on those shows, but a lot of it was just fucking awful. And there's still some stuff now on the shows that are not good. But by and large, most of the stuff that we get from week to week is at least serviceable. and it's decent. Is it a must-see show? No, it's not. NXT is not what it was 5 years ago, let alone 4 years ago, like right before the NXT 2.0 turnover. But it's still tolerable. So it's not like there's been a drop-off in the last couple of months. It's been pretty consistent, I would say, all year. Consistently solid, not great, but also not awful, at least in my opinion. Your third question, Nia Jax got criticism for days for the chair shots that she gave Team Bianca at Survivor Series. In fact, she has been criticized endlessly ever since her return, even though she has been surprisingly not injuring many people or anyone I know of since then. Jonathan Coachman buried her on his latest podcast and says that she's only employed because of her family's connections with The Rock, to which I thank him for stating the obvious. I assume you mean thank him for stating the obvious. Is the Nia Jax criticism warranted? Is this world title reign only staying above water for the eventual cash-in from Tiffany? And do you agree with what the coach says? A lot to break down there. So, yeah, I said this last week. The chair shots from Nia Jax at War Games sucked. The overall match was not good. That was not a good match. Nia Jax did not have a good performance in that match. It is also true to say that Nia Jax has had the best year of her WWE career. Is she only employed because of her connections with The Rock? She was probably hired for that reason 10 years ago. Is that why she's still employed? I don't think so, no. Honestly, no, because she got fired 3 or 4 years ago, like during that whole COVID thing. When they got let go of a bunch of talent, I mean, you could say it was because of the vaccine shit and whatever, but it's not like they brought her back a couple of months later when COVID kind of died down. Nia Jax was gone for about 2 years. Yeah, she had that one off in the Rumble in 2023, but, they didn't bring her back until it was Triple H really in charge in late 2023. And Triple H is the one that's gotten behind her. Vince isn't there anymore. Vince has not been there for a long time. Triple H is the one that has pushed Nia Jax, gave her the Queen of the Ring crown. He probably recognizes the improvement that she's shown, and she's been the best book that she's ever been. She's had better matches than she's ever had. Her character progression has been really good. She plays her role really well. So I don't think it's fair to say she is still employed because of her connections with The Rock. From what I heard and from what I understand, she's not even that close with The Rock, first of all. Second of all, they fired her already. So it's not like if she was still there, then I could say that you could make that argument. Yeah, she's still there because of that. Like fucking Tamina, I would say. She seems like a really nice woman from what I understand. She was never good at all. Tamina was never good. And she was there for a hell of a lot longer than she needed to be. Nia Jax was always a bigger star than Tamina. She was never that good early on, but like you said, she has not injured anyone. The other part of what you mentioned, that she's been constantly criticized since coming back, that's just not true. I think Nia Jax has received, every wrestler on the roster probably receives criticism on social media every fucking day. But Nia Jax, I've seen the criticism around her specifically die down drastically since she's been back. People have complained about her. People will always complain about Nia Jax. But the criticism that she has gotten in the last year plus is nothing compared to the criticism that she was getting when she was first around a couple of years ago. And justifiably so. When she was first around, she sucked. She injured a lot of people. Her matches were not great by and large. Didn't have a whole lot of great matches. She has had better matches this year than at any other point in her WWE career. If you were to make a top 5 Nia Jax match list, most of those matches are probably from 2024. Honestly, like the matches with Becky, the match with Nia Jax, even the match with Lyra at King and Queen of the Ring, the match with Naomi on SmackDown a couple of weeks ago for the WWE Women's title, the Michin match for the WWE Women's title, the matches with Bayley were fine. She's had some pretty good matches this year. So I don't think it's fair to say that she's been constantly criticized since coming back. That's just not true. So no, I don't think she's awful at this point. She's improved a lot, and she's deserved the run that she's gotten so far. As far as what I think of her, run, like, is it staying above water just for the eventual cash from Tiffany? We don't know if Tiffany's going to cash in on Nia. We don't. She could end up going to Raw and cashing in on Liv or Rhea or whatever, especially as part of this talent window being open or whatever. So, yeah, I mean, the Tiffany thing has made it more interesting, but Nia Jax has had some good matches during this run. It has not been a terrible run. She's constantly on the show. She's headlined a few times. I wouldn't attribute the only reason as to why it's staying above water in your words is because of Tiffany. That's just not true. The Tiffany thing is actually, if anything, dragging it down, because she's been teasing a cash-in for fucking 5 months now, and we're at a point now where it's like, okay, you do it so often, it's getting old. Either put it on the back burner or just get it over with already. Nia Jax on her own has played her role well. I don't like the fact that she loses as much as she does. She got pinned by Naomi about a month ago. She got pinned by Bianca on Raw about a couple of weeks ago. She got pinned in a tag team match not too long ago. She loses a lot more than she should. That kind of bothers me. They should be protecting her more. But overall, I think they've done well with her in 2024, and she's had the best year of her entire WWE career, like I said earlier. Your next question. Bronson Reed badly damaged both of his ankles during the tsunami off of the top of the cage, putting him on the shelf for at least 4 to 8 months and probably missing, or definitely missing, WrestleMania. I know I not heard from Meltzer, but I saw Meltzer say the other day that he's probably out until like June, they're thinking. I mean, June might be on the earlier side, so hopefully it's before that, but that sucks. Anyway, he goes on to say, I feel bad for him for his injury, but there's no denying that he was selfish for doing it. Doing the dive off the top rope for an unnecessary spot. I'm sorry. He went on to say, there's no denying that he was selfish for doing it, knowing that there's a very big injury risk at hand with his mass, with how big he is. People ripped on Adam Copeland for doing the dive off the top rope for an unnecessary spot, so I think it's only fair to do the same for Bronson, weight difference and all. I think the tsunami is his finisher. I know the tsunami is his finisher, he says. But I still feel it was an unnecessary spot that he should have thought more clearly about. Am I wrong for thinking this? And should he be more careful when to do the tsunamis when he comes back? A lot of that I disagree with. Now, we're not in the ring, so it's hard to exactly speculate what the fuck happened. But here's what I'll say. You mentioned that he should be careful when he comes back. He's been doing the tsunami for years, dude. He is not injured or gotten injured a single fucking time from what we understand. He did the spot. Now, the difference, Adam Copeland did not do his spot off the top of the top rope. I think you messed up there. He did it off the top of the cage. Bronson Reed also did his off the top of the cage. Here's the biggest difference. I don't know what the fuck Adam Copeland was going for. When he did his move off the top of the cage, it looked like he just went feet first onto the ground. Bronson Reed, you should never, especially that height, like even Finn Balor. If Finn Balor were to do the coup de grace off the top of the cage, which I'm sure he's done off the top of a ladder, that is stupid because you could break an ankle, you could break a leg. That I think is kind of dumb. I don't know what the fuck Edge was going for. He's also a lot older than Bronson Reed, so he gets injured a lot easier than Bronson Reed does. I think that Adam Copeland spot was just fucking stupid because it didn't even look good. The tsunami splash, had he connected with it, he wasn't supposed to. It would have looked good because it always looks good. I don't know if Adam Copeland was going for an elbow or just a feet first through the table or a leg drop. It was just messy. That whole thing was just stupid. The Bronson Reed thing, that's his finisher. Adam Copeland was not going for a spear off the top of the cage. He was going for a random fucking leg drop that could have done a lot more damage than he did. I don't really think these two are comparable at all. Yeah, Bronson Reed got hurt, but I think part of the reason, and you can make the argument, I'm making an excuse for it, but okay, whatever. But here's my line of thinking. I only think Bronson Reed got hurt, he injured his ankles, because he never lands on his ankles. He has never injured his ankles or landed on his feet before. I think he only did that because Punk pulled Roman off the table too late. So Bronson, not wanting to kill those fucking guys, probably eased back or adjusted his body weight so he didn't land on them. So he kind of took the bullet there for himself. Bronson is not a rookie. He's not dumb. I think Bronson would have just landed. Again, he wasn't supposed to land on Punk or Roman through the table. The spot was Punk pulling Roman off. But they were very, very close with the Punk was kind of late. They were very close to leaving Roman on the table or one of them getting clipped or whatever. Bronson was probably worried on his way down that he probably still saw Roman there. Didn't want to kill him because he was coming off the top of the cage. So he adjusted his body weight and landed on his feet. More so, he didn't land straight on his feet, but it didn't even look like he injured his ankle until they zoomed in on the replay on SmackDown last week. So an actual splash, you're not really injuring your feet on. I know Jimmy Uso got hurt off a splash. Jimmy Uso did the same fucking thing. Jimmy Uso also did a splash off the top of the cage. We don't have to ban splashes off the top of the cage. Jimmy Uso got hurt, but he injured his toe because of the way that he landed, and that's normal. That makes sense. You're not supposed to, I wouldn't think, I haven't heard of a lot of people injuring their ankle on a spot like that. Even off the top of a cage, we've seen splashes off the top of the cage before. Crossbodies, everything. We've seen all of it. But I think that one didn't work because I think Reed had pulled himself back a little bit. If you watch the tape, that's clearly what it looks like to me anyway. That he had to adjust because he didn't want to kill CM Punk or Roman Reigns because he wasn't supposed to do it off the top of the cage and land on Roman with it. That wasn't the planned spot because he probably would have injured Roman with all that body weight landing on top of Roman. That would have done some damage. So obviously he was never supposed to connect. The Adam Copeland spot, it was just dumb. I don't think this is a brand thing or a company thing where it's like, oh, you gotta, if you shit on WWE for this, you gotta shit on AEW for that, or vice versa. No, the Adam Copeland thing was just dumb. He's also a lot fucking older and probably shouldn't be doing that sort of shit. Yeah, it's his body. He could do what he wants. I saw that excuse back over Double or Nothing weekend after he did it, and people were like, why the fuck would he do it? People like me were thinking that was just super dumb. It didn't even look good. Like the tsunami splash that Bronson was going to hit, did hit, whatever, it looked good. You wouldn't even tell that he got hurt. The Edge one immediately, it's like, oh yeah, he definitely got hurt because that was just fucking stupid. He didn't even connect with it entirely. It just looked awful. So I wouldn't even really compare the two because the Edge one was just unnecessary. If Bronson Reed was doing that more consistently, he does the tsunami splash all the time. Like, he didn't get injured doing it on the top of a fucking car earlier this year, back over the summer. No one was complaining about that. That was an unnecessary spot because it was well done, it was safe, and they knew he wasn't going to get hurt. I mean, you can get hurt on anything, but it wasn't that risky. This was only risky because it was a timing thing, with Roman pulling Punk pulling Roman off the table, and the timing was off, and Bronson, to his credit, probably didn't want to hurt either of them, so he ended up taking the bullet for himself. That, to me, is the biggest difference between the two. The Edge thing was just, it's not like he adjusted his body. Don't even do this spot then. Or do a splash. He didn't even do a splash. Didn't he do like a fucking leg drop? Something dumb, like Psycho Sid-esque when he jumped off the top of the cage and broke his leg in disgusting fashion. That Edge injury could have been a lot worse. Anyway, your next question. What are some of John Cena's all-time worst segments on Raw throughout his career? And how would you rank these 3 segments with him? Cena speaking Star Wars, Cena slut-shaming Eve Torres, and Cena Dolph Ziggler segment from New Year's Eve 2012. You know what the funny thing is? I think all 3 segments that you mentioned were all from the same fucking year, 2012. That is awful. And the best part about that is that Cena actually did some of his better work in 2012 with Punk, with Rock, but when he wasn't working with those guys and he was working with John Laurinaitis and all these other like lower level people, a lot of the stuff he was doing during that time was fucking awful. The Star Wars promo, I didn't even really mind. I honestly kind of thought that was funny just because I'm a Star Wars fan. It was dumb. So I would put that at the bottom as far as like what was the worst. The worst was the poop thing. You mentioned Cena Ziggler. What you forgot to mention was Cena Ziggler and AJ Lee. AJ and Ziggler were in the ring. I don't know if they were getting married or what the fuck they were doing. And Cena let poop. They didn't say it was poop, but he had shit come from the ceiling and he sprayed them with poop. It was such a Vince McMahon coded segment. And it was awful. Just a fitting way to close 2012, which I enjoyed overall in WWE. At the time, looking back, there was a lot of garbage and a lot of shit, pun intended. That was terrible. They tried to pull like it was supposed to be what they did with the Spirit Squad in 2006, which was also pretty fucking stupid, by the way. That was also a dumb segment. This was even worse. Because at least the DX stuff was somewhat funny. The Cena stuff was just dumb. And it was more in line with what DX would do. Cena was just awful. The Cena Eve Torres slut-shaming thing was bad, but Eve was a heel, so that kind of made more sense. But I would put that second. I would put the poop thing first and the Star Wars thing third. As far as other like bad segments that he's had throughout his career, speaking of poop, remember he wrote on JBL's limo back in 2008, which I thought was funny back at the time because I was fucking 13. But in retrospect, I cringe. Remember when on JBL's limo back in the summer of 2008, he wrote in Crime Time's, spray can, the spray paint, he wrote JBL is poopy? Yeah, that was pretty bad. There was also a lot of promos in 2009, 2010, where he was like saying the dumbest shit. It was mostly in 2010 when he like had those back and forths with the anonymous Raw GM. And he was like, oh, my email is John Cena 69. Like, what are we doing here? I think one of them was from the draft in 2010, and he called Sheamus like mayonnaise or something. Bro, I lived through that shit and didn't think it was that bad at the time because I was younger. But watching it back now, I can absolutely understand why a lot of people tuned out of WWE and never came back. Because that shit was fucking terrible. Now, L from Facebook, would you say Finn Balor reached his peak on the main roster in 2016? And he has become an absolute joke of a character? And should he pull a Drew McIntyre and leave WWE to reinvent himself? Did Finn Balor peak in 2016? Yes. Yes, he did. Nothing he has done in WWE since then. He has not been as hot in WWE than he was in 2016 when he was the NXT champion, having great matches with Samoa Joe and all this other sort of shit. He was on top as NXT champion. 2015 too, but probably 2015. But you're on the main roster. Yeah, he peaked when he first showed up. He beat fucking Roman Reigns. He pinned Roman Reigns, I think, on the night of his debut. And then he won the world title, the Universal title, terrible design, but whatever, at SummerSlam within weeks. And then he got hurt and he was never the same. And that's not really his fault. It was the booking. When he came back, he should have been a big star and he wasn't. The only other time he came close to that was in NXT in 2019-2020. He was doing great heel work. That NXT run, early on specifically, but from late 2019 to early 2020, right before COVID, Balor was awesome. The matches he was having with Matt Riddle, Johnny Gargano, Adam Cole, Tommaso Ciampa were excellent. So, that was the peak of his WWE career overall. Main roster 2016, that fucking 1 month period. And it's sad to say because he's been in the main roster for 8.5 years. His best stretch was the first month that he was there because they never treated him the same after that. He got world title shots after that. He headlined pay-per-views. He had Hell in a Cell matches. And he lost when it mattered most almost every single fucking time. Heel, babyface, didn't matter. Has he become an absolute joke of a character? I wouldn't go that far necessarily. Like, he's still on the show consistently. He was in a worse spot. Like, it sounded like he was on the verge of quitting. Right before Vince left, surprise, surprise, in early 2022, he was doing absolutely nothing. Like, that Roman Reigns feud ended in late 2021, and he lost all those matches. The Demon was made to look like a fool. They ruined the Demon. And then he was doing nothing for late 2021. He won the U.S. title for like a month, and he wasn't even on WrestleMania. Like, Balor had never felt that unimportant before in his entire WWE career. Even as a mid-card champion, that belt meant nothing. Absolutely nothing. And then he lost to Austin Theory. The Judgment Day saved his career, honestly. If it wasn't for the Judgment Day and Triple H taking over creative, he probably would have left. I know Balor's contract expired this year, so if he really wanted to leave, and even now, obviously now he's challenging for a world title at the show on Saturday. I don't think he's going to win. He'll never be a big deal. Like, I see these reports of Balor, he's going to get a sustained singles push in 2025. Where was that 3 years ago? I don't see it. I just don't see that happening. The time for that would have been a while ago. I'm just so beyond Balor, like, being a big deal. There's other people they could be focusing on. He's won a world title, albeit for a day. I'd rather see other people get pushed. To be completely honest, Balor's still great, but I haven't seen that one, like, truly great match out of him in a long time. Those Rollins matches last year were really good, but, like, a match that's like, man, they really should be pushing him as the world champion. And anytime he got world title opportunities, he fucking lost. So, they pushed him in the Edge feud. He was supposed to be a top threat then. He lost. The Rollins feud, he lost. The Priest feud, he lost. You know what I mean? Like, it's a recurring pattern. He is just a stepping stone at this point, even under Triple H. I guess Kevin Owens is a stepping stone too, but his shit to me is more entertaining. Balor just is more of an afterthought than Owens is, by far, in my opinion. Should he pull a Drew and leave to reinvent himself? I think it's too little too late. Like, Ziggler, he's gone now from WWE. I don't know if he's not reinventing himself. He's the same Ziggler now that he was in WWE a fucking year ago. He's just having better matches because he's being given more time. But character-wise, there's absolutely nothing different about Ziggler now than there was a year ago. But like Ziggler, had he left at a certain point, he could have pulled a Drew, come back, and been a big star, I think. Like a Cody Rhodes. Cody and Drew left at the right time. Ziggler was there for way too long, the damage was done. Balor, to me, was there for too long, the damage was done. If he really wanted to reinvent himself and come back a bigger star, even this year, this to me was the last window of opportunity. He could have left this year and maybe have come back in a couple of years and been a bigger star. Because he's like, but now he's like 40, 42, 44? Like, he's older now. He's not coming back at 50 and winning the world title, I don't think. So that window, like, this would have been it, and he resigned. So he's not going anywhere. The other window of opportunity would have been in like 2019, 2021. After that NXT run, he could have quit then because he wasn't going to be treated like a big deal in the main roster and then come back a bigger star. He would have been a big star in AEW 3 years ago for sure. 2019, when AEW first started, he could have been like a Jon Moxley type talent on that show. And he didn't. He decided to stay. So, hey, he decided to stay, so it is what it is. You can't really blame anyone but Balor for that one. Their second question, is Julia finally going to beat Roxanne Perez at the next takeover? Well, it's funny that we're still calling them takeovers. They have not been takeovers in years, but it's not even a live special. It's their episode of NXT, their first one of 2025, New Year's Evil. Yes, I do think she will finally win there. It would be weird for Julia to earn another opportunity at Roxanne and for Roxanne to win again. I don't think that, what's the point of having Julia get a title shot if she's going to lose again? So, no, I do think Julia gets the title, takes the title on that show, and we can maybe move Perez to the main roster, ? Soon after. At Reborn Again, John Ritland from the Twitter machine and on YouTube and Letterboxd. Check out his content, Real Honesty with John Ritland. Does a lot of great wrestling reviews, movie reviews, and whatnot. His first question was, so Saturday night's main event seems to be shaping up to be a decent card, but the build for Liv versus Io has been questionable to say the least. The booking of the women's roster seems to be an issue for Triple H, doesn't it? It definitely is. I mean, we've talked about this ad nauseum, so I won't spend too much time on it, especially now that we're past the fucking hour mark here. I talk way too much. But yeah, I think Triple H's, one of his Achilles heels is booking the women more meaningfully, which is interesting because he did such a great job with it, I think, in NXT. But in NXT, it's a different playground. It's a smaller show. It was a 1 hour show for a long time and different requirements. He's got two brands, a lot longer. Like, they're going to be 3 hours in a month. He's going to have a lot more to juggle. I think he's done a better job in the last 6 to 12 months of booking the SmackDown women's division over the Raw women's division. They both have a lot of women, but I feel like the women on SmackDown have more variety. Maybe it's because we don't have factions on SmackDown. Maybe there is a faction on SmackDown, I'm forgetting. But on Raw, you have the fucking Pure Fusion Collective, Damage Control. Like, who cares? Who cares about that shit, dude? They have a lot more tag teams on Raw than they do on SmackDown. And it's just, a lot of it's just not interesting. So a lot of the women on Raw, they are very good, but the creative, it doesn't really help them at all. Like Pure Fusion Collective, could the creative really help that? I don't know. Triple H has got to pull the plug on that or figure out whatever the fuck is going on there because it sucks. Vince, at least, he would pull the plug on things quickly, even if he didn't give it a chance to work out. I think he would have pulled the plug on Pure Fusion Collective by now because he would have saw that it was not working. Honestly, like, I think Triple H is being nice by giving it a chance. It's been months. It's just, no one cares. No one gives a shit. I'm not even saying Shayna would be useful on her own at this point. I like Shayna, but it's not like they're going to push her on her own. We're past that window of opportunity too. Zoe Stark is fine as a stepping stone character. Sonya at this point, I just don't care. So yeah, they gotta book the women's division better for sure. Triple H does on the main roster, no doubt about it. Your second question, the Continental Classic seems to like a good idea in theory, at least as far as good wrestling goes. However, Khan seems to have overestimated the willingness of the fans to tune into all three shows to keep up with it. Can anything be done to fix this lack of interest? No. I mean, in the Continental Classic, no. I think there is interest in the CC, in the Continental Classic, but people will tune in. There are stories going on, but the main appeal of the Continental Classic is the wrestling. So if you don't care about that, it's not going to change. They can tell some stories, and they are in the tournament, and they did last year. It's not like they're telling no stories, but the main appeal of it is the wrestling. So if you don't care about that shit, you're not going to care at all. What can be done to fix the lack of interest in the product itself? More/better stories. I mean, they have stories. A lot of them aren't good or just not interesting right now. I mean, that to me is the biggest thing. Like, it's not a star power issue. It's not a roster issue. They have a lot of great talent and a lot of great matches, but there's just not an overarching, great angle that's carrying the product right now. The Death Rider stuff sucks. And a lot of the other stuff they're doing on the show it's not awful, but it's just not interesting. It's just not must-see TV at all. AEW has not been must-see in a few years now. I'll watch the shows. I'll enjoy most of them, but they don't feel like consequential television the same way Raw and SmackDown have in recent months, at least anyway to me. And it goes back and forth, but I think to fix it, just more/better stories. It's not that they don't have any of them. They could just be doing a better job with most of them. Non-wrestling related, but what would be your top 5 Christmas movies of all time? Side note, I'm at 321 movies for 2024. Yeah, I might have gone a little bit overboard this year. I would agree, John. That's crazy, but that's an impressive feat nonetheless. My top 5 favorite Christmas movies, 4 of them are set in stone. And I've always had my top 3. My top 2 have never changed. My top 2 are How the Grinch Stole Christmas, the Jim Carrey 2000 version, and Christmas Vacation. Those will always be my top 3. I'm sorry, top 2. As far as the other movies, I think Die Hard is now in my top 5 since I first saw it years ago. Love Die Hard. Try to watch it once a year. If you don't think it's a Christmas movie, fuck off, but it is. So that's in there. Christmas with the Cranks is in there. Not a good movie at all. I've said this before. It's such a bad, abysmal movie that it's good. I love watching it. It's a guilty pleasure of mine. So those are my undisputed top 4, specifically the top 2. The 5th one I feel like is interchangeable. I had said after I first saw it, and I would maintain this, that Violent Night, after that came out a couple of years ago, great movie, was now in my top 5 favorite Christmas movies. But it's tough because the other 3 that I would mention are just such classics that it's hard to overcome them. So I think my 5th spot, it might go to Violent Night. It might be Violent Night, but Violent Night and Die Hard are like the same thing anyway. So it probably might not be Violent Night. Violent Night would be very close, 6 or 7. But I think that 5th spot is also tied with Elf, Home Alone, and the Santa Claus. But the thing is, I like both Home Alone movies, and I don't acknowledge the other number of them because a lot of them are terrible. The Santa Claus movies I kind of constitute as one. I love all 3 equally. I think I like 2 more than the other 2, actually. I think 2 might be the best one, in my opinion. But they're all classics. I think they're all great movies, and Elf is great. I would probably go Elf. That was the first one I listed here. But Home Alone's a great one. A lot of dumb shit in that movie, and the same thing with the second one even more so, but they're just good movies. Santa Claus, same thing, but I enjoy it. And Violent Night I love. So the 5th spot is tied with those, but the other ones go to Die Hard, Christmas with the Cranks, Christmas Vacation, and How the Grinch Stole Christmas. I have my complete list, by the way, of my top 20 favorite Christmas movies not ranked on Letterboxd, if you want to check it out. That's available right now on my Letterboxd account. Check out it's Graham or Mina on there, but WrestleRant, whatever. I'm on Letterboxd, and my full top 20 favorite Christmas movies are available over there. Cheap plug. At Iwagu91 from Twitter, first question. Ever since its first use in 2022, what are your thoughts on the Iron Survivor match? I love it. I think it's a great concept. NXT's like the, breeding ground for new match concepts or returning match concepts, and the NXT Underground match, it's cool. They've done a lot of them. I feel like they're kind of making that feel not special now because they've done so many of them. But the Iron Survivor Challenge match is cool because, AEW came up with that casino gauntlet, whatever the fuck it is. Great concept. Again, same thing, but they've done it too often this year. They did 3 or 4 of them. NXT, to its credit, has kind of relegated that match concept to Deadline specifically. So I like that. They're saving it for Deadline. They're keeping it a Deadline. And they set up matches for New Year's Evil. I like that a lot. So, I think the match concept's great. I think this year's, the men's and the women's, were weaker than the past installments, but they were still fun for what they were. Your second question, do you see Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn having a match at WrestleMania 41? Yes, I do. Based on Owens' comment towards Zayn in that car interview with Michael Cole on SmackDown, and just, I don't know what else they would be doing if they weren't facing each other. Maybe they end up on the same show in this talent exchange. I don't know. Yes, I do see Owens and Zayn having a match at WrestleMania 41, and I think they should. Your third question, do you see CM Punk and Chad Gable, or Gunther and Chad Gable? Where the fuck did I get Chad Gable from? Do you see CM Punk and Gunther feuding with each other after the respective feuds are over? I want to say yes. I also feel like there's a chance they might move Gunther to SmackDown. So I don't know. I feel like, listen, the way that Punk doesn't give a fuck about... I don't know if we're getting Punk and Rollins in Mania. I thought we would. We might be getting him the first Raw of the year, which is fine, but I would also do it at Mania. I think Punk and Roman you can hold off on. Why rush through Punk and Rollins when you can do that at Mania and then also do Punk and Roman another year? I know Punk won't be around for 10 years, but I think you could stretch it out a little bit better, in my opinion. But I think you could do Punk and Gunther at the Rumble. Gunther can beat him, and I hate the interference in Gunther's matches, but you can blame the loss, Punk's loss, on Rollins. Rollins gets involved. He costs him the match. He's like, listen, you don't give a shit about me? Well, we're going to have a match now because I cost you the title, the one thing you want more than anything. And listen, you're going to want to face me now, right? And then he does, and maybe he goes heel, does Rollins, and that sets up the match or the rematch for Mania. So that's what I would do. That's how we would get a Punk-Gunther feud. I want a Punk-Gunther feud at some point. He even mentioned Gunther in the World Heavyweight Championship a couple of months ago after beating Drew McIntyre at Bash in Berlin, and there was never any follow-up on that. So I think if Punk wants the world title, as opposed to going through the Rumble, well, you should face Gunther at the Rumble. Just my opinion. At millennial underscore noob, his question was, what are your thoughts on the Rey Fenix situation? I don't think Tony will renew his contract because now it's going to get ugly. Well, obviously. I think Tony Khan, if it already is ugly, I think Tony Khan should just release Rey Fenix instead of keeping him. I will talk more about this in depth on Wrestle Rant Radio tomorrow with Mr. Marcel. Here's the thing. One, Rey Fenix signed a contract. And if you want to get let out early, should he be let out early if Tony Khan does not intend to use him? Yes. If you want to go to a different company, then guess what? Tough shit. You signed a 5-year deal. You're there till the 5 years are over. That's like with the Mustafa Ali thing. People keep comparing it to that. The Ali thing, I did feel bad. Like if he's being misbooked, well, tough shit. Like you signed a deal for X amount of years. They can release you at any time. Yeah, it's not fair, but listen, you signed that deal. The WWE deals, even AEW deals, they're not fair. They're not supposed to be fair. They should be fair. They're not. They don't have a no-cut clause in them. They can cut you. You can't quit whenever you want. I mean, I guess. I don't know. With Punk he did, but Punk was so close to the end of his deal. I'm talking about WWE. I'm not even talking about AEW. They fired Punk. His deal was up like around now. But they fired Punk, and I don't think they thought he would go to WWE. They just wanted to get rid of him because it was so ugly at the end there. That was a different situation. My whole thing is, it sucks if they're not using you and you want to leave and they will not let you go. Like the Ricky Starks thing, for example. I don't think his issue is an issue of injury time being added. He just has more time left on his deal. Do I think it's stupid that with Ricky Starks' deal they added a holdover, a rollover? They rolled it over for a year and have not used him since. That's pretty shitty. Is it illegal? No, they could do that. They're contractually able to do that. Is it shitty? Yes, that's very fucking stupid. With Rey Fenix, we don't know all the details. That is important to note here. But I think it might be a case of, and I think it is a case of, him and Penta were both free at the same time. But they added a lot more time to Rey Fenix's deal because he was hurt. That sucks, but they are able to do that. Like they did that with Luke Harper in WWE. It's shitty, but they can be shitty. It's not like illegal, I don't think, but it's shitty. The problem here, to my knowledge, based on what has been said, is that Phoenix could not get help for his injury. And I'll get into that in a moment, because I saw some blowback on that as well. But Rey Fenix could not properly tend to his injury or report it to AEW because they weren't helping with him or whatever, and he works there, so they should have helped him with it. And because of that, they added the time on that he was gone, even though that was their fault. If that's the problem, that is on them. That's extremely fucking shitty. Now, did he sign an NDA? Like, he put out those tweets and then he deleted them, I think. We don't know what the fuck is going on there. That's kind of odd. And he might be saying something now because of all other efforts have fallen short, so he kind of feels like he has to. We have no idea. But is it a case also of, like, could he have just gotten medical attention himself? Yeah, obviously. I've seen a lot of people say that in the last couple of days. Well, why didn't Rey Fenix just get the help himself when Rey Fenix said, I asked for a doctor and you didn't help me? Well, that's his fucking boss. If you got injured on his time in the AEW ring, then of course AEW should have helped him with it and should have accelerated the process to get Fenix back in the ring quicker and on a actual timetable of when he should have been back, so they don't have to add injury time. That is absolutely AEW's fault. So, I can understand it from both sides. I think this is more of an AEW issue, though. Should they just release him? Yes, they should. The thing is, if they do, it then sets the precedent of, well, then we'll get rid of everyone. Like, Ricky Starks' issue is not an injury thing, I don't think. It might be. I don't think it is. I think his deal was always supposed to expire next year, according to what people have said. They're just not using him. That, to me, is shitty. Like, just because you want to leave doesn't mean you can just let him go. I agree with that. Like, you signed the deal. That is your fault. But if they're not using you, if they have no use for you, then it is shitty for them to just keep you just because, your deal's up next year, so we're going to hold you till then. That's just dumb. Just let them go. You're just letting them not let them go because you don't want them to go to WWE, where you know they'll use them better, especially after they used Ethan Page better when he got let go earlier this year. And I think he wanted out. His deal was not up, and then they just let him go. And then he was in WWE, so they probably don't want a repeat of that situation. But yeah, there's a lot to discuss there. I'll get into it more with Mr. Marceau tomorrow on WrestleRant Radio, but it is an ugly situation. It already is ugly. It might get uglier. It might get uglier before it gets better. Just keep that in mind. At BillMeister88, the last couple of questions here as we wind down, as we approach the 1 hour and 15-minute mark. 16-minute mark, which is crazy. Anyway, he says, "Hey, Graham, sorry for no questions for a few weeks. Hope you and Alexis had a great Thanksgiving." Yeah, that long ago. Well, I appreciate that, Bill. Thank you very much. He said, "First question, I saw your Harry Potter tweet. How far in are you, and which is your favorite of the franchise and why? Will this mean a new Universal trip?" Yeah, so I tweeted yesterday that I was in the process, well, not just me, I'll explain in a second, but Alexis and I, and also my younger sister, who has never seen the Harry Potter movies, we're all collectively watching the movies together. I mentioned in my tweet that I have seen all the movies. I don't know if I saw all of them in theaters. I definitely saw like 3 through part 2 of 7 in theaters. I saw all of those in theaters. I read the first couple of books. I owned all the books for a while, didn't read the second half of them. My brother was more into that shit. He is a big Harry Potter fan. I'm not as big of a Harry Potter fan at all. I'm more of a Star Wars guy, Marvel guy, whatever. But I have not seen the movies sequentially, like in order, in a very long time. And I don't think I've ever sat down to watch, like not in a day, but like I've never sat down to watch them in order over any stretch of time ever. I've just seen them in theaters or seen them on TV. And especially the later ones, I saw them in theaters, but either didn't see them again, because they didn't replay that shit on TV. On ABC Family or Freeform now, whatever the fuck you want to call it, they would constantly replay, the first movie, the second movie, sometimes maybe the third movie. I remember those movies more than the later movies, even though those were more recent. So my favorite one for forever was always the second one, I would say, just because I remembered that one the most. It was always on TV. We are up to episode like it's Star Wars. We're up to the 5th movie. We just finished Order of the Phoenix. We watched 1 through 5. Now, I'm doing this now because at one point, Alexis did express interest in watching the movies, at least giving them a try. And I'm like, well, we don't start something without finishing it. So if we're going to watch them, we're going to watch all of them. Not like every day, but like maybe one a week, which we've tried to do for the last month and a half, which we have. So we've watched 5 of them. We still have 6 to go, and then part 1 and part 2 of 7, which we'll probably watch, 1 week and then the other. It's tough with Christmas coming up and all the shit we have going on. We have going on the next couple of weeks that I don't know if we'll be able to squeeze them in before the end of the year. But the timing of it, we're watching them now, not because it's like Christmas season and they're Christmas movies. That's just stupid to me. There's Christmas scenes in most of these movies. I would not consider them Christmas movies. But anyway, we're watching them now because I think I mentioned this before. The channel I religiously watch, New Rockstars, they break down Star Wars, Marvel, and comic book shit, whatever. They're doing a rewatch series currently of all the Harry Potter movies and like breaking them down and whatever. So I thought if there was any time to watch the Harry Potter movies, it would be now as I'm watching those breakdowns and kind of refresh my memory and shit. So that's why we're watching it now. We're up to 5. My favorite would probably be, I said 2, but it might be 4 now. We watched 4 about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, and it was great. That was my favorite one so far. 5 was really good. It might end up being, I remember really liking part 2 of the 7th movie. So that might end up being my favorite, but I'm not sure. So we'll see. I guess we'll see how it pans out. But of the 5 I've seen so far, like in recent memory, all time it's hard to say because I don't remember the later movies as much. It's been a while. But of the original, like of the 5 I've seen during my rewatch series, I would say the 4th one. Because that's when, I won't spoil it here, but like the final finishing sequence is great. A lot more tension than in the other movies. They get more serious. I like that one a lot, specifically for the ending. Your second question, And also, I forgot to answer that part of it. Will this mean a new Universal trip? Yeah, it might. I haven't been to Universal in like well over 20 years. Anytime I've been to Orlando, it's always Disney or Busch Gardens or something. I have not been to Universal in a very long time. But it might be time to go check out the Harry Potter world. And I know there's rides there and shit to do, so I still want to go to Disney, but I might have to check out Universal too, because I feel like that would be fun. Anyway, and also the Mario world they have there. Anyway, your second question. Your thoughts on Nick Khan saying WWE will stay family-friendly on Netflix. Personally, I thought they'd go edgier after the move, but do you think it's the right choice, as PG-13 gives them scope to do blood and more edgier things when necessary and in moderation? Here's the thing. You say that, but we get that shit anyway. We get blood, and we already have edgier shit. Like, what is the definition of edgy of what we're talking about here? Like, do we need topless women, near topless women running around, or like choppy or pee-pee level stuff? Like, what are we talking about as far as edgy goes? Could they benefit from being slightly edgier? Sure. But AEW is a PG-13 product, PG-14 product. It ain't much better than WWE right now. So that's a perfect example of it. Now, you could also say, well, in Triple H's hands or in WWE's hands, it would be done better. Yeah, I could see that. But they don't really need it. The product currently, to me, is strong. We have enough blood as it is. They get edgy when necessary anyway. They've done that for a decade. I've said this before. Even when it's been PG, they have always pushed the line. Ever since Rock came back to the company the first time was when I really noticed it. When he was saying ass and bitch and they didn't bleep it out. They've been doing this for a long fucking time and just did not care. It has not been a purely PG product in a very long time. So the fact that they're not going to be PG-13 on Netflix does not bother me at all. Because the product overall has been very good for the last couple of years, and they have not needed to be edgier in order to be better. They have proven that. The rating, to me, is irrelevant. So the fact that they will not be edgier on Netflix is totally fine. This is not the Attitude Era. We don't need the Attitude Era back. It was a product of its time. It was great to a lot of people. They can do things in their own way and make it good. Take what worked from that era, apply it here when necessary if possible, but keep doing what you're doing and just keep doing it better. That's what I would say. Last question from Bill, and just in general. I promise we're almost done here. It was Kurt Angle's birthday earlier this week. Do you think his best work was in WWE or TNA? For me, he is the greatest in-ring wrestler of all time. Is that fair, or would you say Shawn Michaels or someone else? Best work in WWE or TNA? Listen, his TNA run was great. He was in TNA longer than he was in WWE. Yes. But if someone were to ask me, what matches should I watch of Kurt Angle's? I would probably always recommend the ones that he had in WWE. He was a fucking monster in TNA. I know we talk Perk Angle, we joke about that. It wasn't that funny, but I mean, because it's kind of a serious situation if you watch the documentary. But his TNA run was great. His WWE run was better. WWE, he had a lot of amazing matches. There's just more matches I would recommend from that time period in WWE than I would the TNA stuff. And maybe it's just because I'm more aware of the WWE stuff, but like the Shawn Michaels matches alone to me are better than any matches he had in TNA. I don't know if that's a bold opinion or a bold statement, but that to me is the truth. I would recommend that. I would recommend the Undertaker match from No Way Out 2006. I would recommend any of the Benoit matches that he had at Royal Rumble 03 or some of the matches on SmackDown. The SmackDown 6 stuff in late 02 was amazing. The Brock Lesnar matches were great. Headlining WrestleMania 19 was an excellent match. The match with Eddie Guerrero. Even some of the matches towards the end there with Randy Orton. All the matches with John Cena were really good. Helped elevate him. You know, there's so many people. So I would go, personally, I would go Kurt Angle in WWE over Kurt Angle in TNA. Is he the greatest wrestler of all time? I mean, I know this is a subjective question and it constantly changes. I would probably say Shawn Michaels. A lot of people would say Bret Hart. I say Shawn Michaels probably because I grew up more on Shawn than I did Kurt. I was watching TNA when Kurt was there, but I was more of a WWE guy, obviously, even though I did watch TNA. I'm going to go Shawn Michaels. I feel like Shawn, just overall package-wise, was better than Kurt. Kurt picked it up quickly, and Kurt had a lot of great matches. A lot of amazing matches, but Shawn had some even better moments and better feuds, I would say, than Kurt did. Kurt had great matches with Ray and Edge as well. Forgot to mention those, among others. But I would probably, and I've always said Shawn Michaels For best wrestler, not performer or superstar, I would go Shawn. But if you said Kurt, if you said Brett, I wouldn't argue with you. If you said like a Hulk Hogan or a John Cena for greatest wrestler of all time, then I would argue with you. Or Rock or Stone Cold, I feel Shawn, Brett, and Angle are better than all those guys in the ring itself. We're not talking mic skills or, overall package and presentation. I did say Shawn had a better overall package than Kurt. Wait, that sounds weird. I take that back. I would say that Shawn is the better overall package than Kurt Angle. There we go. But even then, even in the ring-wise, even from an in-ring standpoint strictly, I would still say Shawn has a slight edge over Kurt. But just my opinion. My opinion might change next week. But that's where I stand right now. All right, after almost an hour and a fucking half, a lot of questions, a lot of great questions. We didn't have as much time last week. I had to go to a fucking Celtics game last week, and that was fun. Had a great time there, but we had to rush out, which is why I kept it short. This week, no handcuffs, no limitations, just great questions. Thank you guys so much, as always, for sending in said questions. We are rolling on into the holiday season. We have next week as a normal week. The week after is Christmas Eve. So my current plan... Well, Christmas falls on a fucking Wednesday, doesn't it? No, wait. No, yeah, wait. Christmas. I said Christmas Eve. Fuck. So here's what we're probably going to do. I think what I'm going to do is the exact same thing that we did, and I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago. We're probably going to do the exact same thing that we did 5 years ago when the calendar was the same way. What I'm probably going to do is record this, not on Christmas itself, but on Christmas Eve. So you would have to send in the questions by Monday night, whatever, and then I'll record it on Tuesday morning because I'll be busy Christmas itself for pretty much the entire day, and then Christmas Eve as well, but later on in the morning I can probably do it. That's in 2 weeks, so just a heads up. Next week is normal. The week after that we might have to adjust. New Year's Day, I'm not sure on yet. I don't think I would record on Christmas Eve or New Year's Eve. I can probably do it on New Year's Day. At what time, I'm not sure. I'll probably do it that day. I'm just not sure yet. But anyway, thank you guys so much for sending in your questions. I appreciate the support. As always, if you want to send in a question to the show, you could do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/Graham.GSM.Matthews. Drop a comment on the post I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section on this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. Have an awesome one, folks. I'm Graham GSM Matthews. Enjoy your holiday season, and I'll catch your ass down the road.